What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. So, Leviticus 6. In the previous chapters, we were mostly going over different types of offerings. Chapter 5 introduced guilt offerings, and considering that was the last subheading for any of these sections, I'm inclined to assume that the start of chapter 6 is also related to guilt offerings. Maybe, maybe not. We'll just have to see. But anyway, let's get this rolling, I guess. The Lord said to Moses, "If anyone sins and is unfaithful to the Lord by deceiving a neighbor about something entrusted to them or left in their care, or about something stolen, or if they cheat their neighbor, or if they find lost property and lie about it, or if they swear falsely about any such sin that people may commit. When they sin in any of these ways and realize their guilt, they must return what they have stolen or taken by extortion, or what was entrusted to them, or the lost property they found, or whatever it was they swore falsely about. They must make restitution in full, add a fifth of the value to it, and give it all to the owner on the day they present their guilt offering. And as a penalty, they must bring to the priest, that is, to the Lord, their guilt offering, a ram from the flock, one without defect and of the proper value. In this way, the priest will make atonement for them before the Lord, and they will be forgiven for any of the things they did that made them guilty." Okay, so considering it uses the word guilty and stuff like that multiple times, I think it's safe to assume that, yes, we're talking about guilt offerings here. So this particular section seems to be talking mostly about a gaining of another person's property in some way or another. I mean, because it talks about deceiving a neighbor about something entrusted to them, something stolen, they cheat their neighbor, if they find lost property, yeah. Or if they swear falsely about any such sin. Anyway, so then they have to not only, provide the regular, sacrificial animal for the guilt offering, but then there's also paying back what they gained from the other person with interest, essentially. Because, if it was just they had to give it back, then there might be something else that they could have gained from the possession of that item or animal or whatever in the meantime. And so adding the extra fifth of the value on top of it sort of disincentivizes further, such behavior. So this says specifically a ram for the actual animal sacrifice offering. Did it say a ram before? Ram from the flock, one without... Yeah, okay. So, yeah, essentially then, when any of those particular things happen, they're to do the whole guilt offering thing. Real quick, footnote here. Sorry. In Hebrew text, 6:1-7 is numbered 5:20-26. Okay. Which makes a little bit of sense because of this also being involved with the guilt offering, which was included at the end of chapter 5. But anyway, it still kind of makes me wonder, though, why the numbering would have changed from the way that the Hebrew is. I think I'm going to move along here then. Verse 8. The Lord said to Moses, "Give Aaron and his sons this command. These are the regulations for the burnt offering. The burnt offering is to remain on the altar hearth throughout the night till morning, and the fire must be kept burning on the altar. The priest shall then put on his linen clothes, with linen undergarments next to his body, and shall remove the ashes of the burnt offering that the fire has consumed on the altar, and place them beside the altar. Then he is to take off these clothes and put on others, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a place that is ceremonially clean. The fire on the altar must be kept burning. It must not go out. Every morning the priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire, and burn the fat of the fellowship offerings on it. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out." Okay, so lots of repetition about keeping the fire going, which pretty much just means that it's an important thing to take note of. I mean, if the fire was really supposed to, consume, for lack of a better way to put it, all the things that were placed on it, then yeah, you want to keep it burning just to make absolutely sure that all of that is actually fully burnt and, turned to ash or whatever. Because otherwise, if the fire goes out partway through, then there's no telling for sure if all the offerings that were placed on it were really, fully consumed, used up, offered as they were supposed to be. Because it says it's just a burnt offering, which makes it sound like maybe it's just supposed to be okay, we're placing this stuff on here and it's just all going to completely burn. Nothing else is going to happen with it. Just burn it till it's ash. So the fat of the fellowship offerings, it's saying, is supposed to go on, on top of the burnt offerings. Or at least that's what it makes it seem like. So I assume, though, whenever they would, relocate themselves as they made their journey to the promised land, that the fire from the altar would go out. They would... I mean, maybe it's just... Maybe it was just saying that the fire was supposed to go continuously throughout the night. So then, all the offerings and stuff from it are burned properly. And then in the mornings, everything kind of resets. But then again, verse 13, the fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously. It must not go out. So, I mean, I suppose it is possible that they could have kept it burning while they were moving along, but I don't know. It seems like an extra hassle, but then again, it just might have been something where it was just straight up never supposed to go out. But anyway, I was just slightly unclear on whether it's really all the time, or whether it was just it has to be kept going while things are being burned on it. But anyway, details. I think it's about time I get moving along to verse 14. These are the regulations for the grain offering. Aaron's sons are to bring it before the Lord in front of the altar. The priest is to take a handful of the finest flour and some olive oil, together with all the incense on the grain offering, and burn the memorial portion on the altar as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Aaron and his sons shall eat the rest of it, but it is to be eaten without yeast in the sanctuary area. They are to eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. It must not be baked with yeast. I have given it as their share of the food offerings presented to me. Like the sin offering and the guilt offering, it is most holy. Any male descendant of Aaron may eat it. For all generations to come, it is his perpetual share of the food offerings presented to the Lord. Whatever touches them will become holy. Whatever touches the priests or the food offerings. Anyway, so I'm not entirely sure why it feels the need to go back and talk about some of these other types of offerings again. We've already covered these. So, I mean, there's probably a little bit more detail or something else that's being said here that wasn't there before. But I'd rather not go back and forth for every single one of these things, just to point out what specifically is new in this section. So, I guess the part of saying where they're supposed to eat it is new, as well as the part saying any male descendant of Aaron may eat it. But, yeah. Let's check the footnotes here real quick. So rather than saying the memorial portion, it could be translated as a representative portion. Which, while those words, have different meanings from each other, it's still, generally speaking, the same idea, where it's just like, there's one portion of it that's specifically for the offering, and then the rest goes to the priests. Footnote there says purification offering instead of sin offering. I don't know if that other translation possibility was noted previous times that it talked about sin offerings. But anyway, also footnote there, whoever touches them must be holy. Okay, that would make a little bit more sense, logically speaking, because basically it's just saying, hey, whoever touches the, portion of the grain offerings for the priests, that person has to be holy. Rather than using wording that would make it possibly seem like anybody who touches the grain offering becomes holy by, just the effect of touching it. That doesn't really make a ton of sense. I think this alternate wording of it makes a little more sense. Or at least it's clearer in what it's logically trying to communicate. Because otherwise you get into possible logic, kind of almost like what you have with the Catholic idea of the Immaculate Conception, where the assumption is that, because Jesus is holy and he was physically born of Mary, that Mary then had to be completely holy and righteous and perfect in order to give birth to the perfect Son of God, which that doesn't that's not a necessary thing to believe in. Like, Jesus being holy does not require Mary being holy just for her ability to give birth to him. But anyway, okay. Enough about that little tangent. I guess I'll move along to verse 19 then. The Lord said to Moses, "This is the offering Aaron and his sons are to bring to the Lord on the day he is anointed, a tenth of an ephah of the finest flour as a regular grain offering, half of it in the morning and half in the evening. It must be prepared with oil on a griddle. Bring it well mixed and present the grain offering broken in pieces as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The son who is to succeed him as anointed priest shall prepare it. It is the Lord's perpetual share and is to be burned completely. Every grain offering of a priest shall be burned completely. It must not be eaten." Which makes sense, logically speaking, because, I mean, why would you be giving part of your own offering to yourself? Makes it kind of a bit less of an offering, really. But a bit less of a, sacrifice. But it's also a grain offering, which is why it's included in this section here. The son who is to succeed him as anointed priest. So, I guess this is, yeah. It says in verse 20 that it's supposed to be for the day of their anointing. Now, it almost makes it sound like here in verse 22 that the priest who then actually does the burning and whatnot, the ceremony related to the offering, would have been the father of the priest who is being anointed. It doesn't say that outright, but it's almost kind of implied in the wording, the son who is to succeed, the son who is to succeed him. But anyway, footnotes. So then, offering that Aaron and his sons are to bring to the Lord on the day each is anointed. Meaning, specifying that, if multiple priests are being anointed on the same day, that each one of them is supposed to bring their own offering. Not that you could have one offering, not that you could only have one offering per day or something like that. And then, footnote there, regarding a tenth of an ephah, it's probably about 3.5 pounds, or 1.6 kilograms. So, just about, maybe not quite with flour. I'm like, because I work at Walmart, I'm thinking, the bags of flour that we have at Walmart, I guess those are typically 5-pound bags. Or 10-pound. My brain was momentarily going to the sugar, which comes in like 4-pound bags, which is, I was going to say, it's pretty close to that, but anyway, given how light flour is, that's not exactly a small amount. Not huge, but not exactly small either. Anyway. Okay. Moving on, verse 24 and following, and we'll wrap this up. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to Aaron and his sons, these are the regulations for the sin offering. Sin offering is to be slaughtered before the Lord in the place the burnt offering is slaughtered. It is most holy. The priest who offers it shall eat it. It is to be eaten in the sanctuary area, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Whatever touches any of the flesh will become holy, and if any of the blood is spattered on a garment, you must wash it in the sanctuary area. The clay pot the meat is cooked in must be broken, but if it is cooked in a bronze pot, the pot is to be scoured and rinsed with water. Any male in a priest's family may eat it. It is most holy. But any sin offering whose blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the holy place must not be eaten. It must be burned up. Okay, and I think it has to differentiate that at the end there, because with the sin offerings, there were various levels of it. Because, like, if, the whole community sinned, or the high priest sinned, those had blood brought into the holy place. The other sin offerings did not, but those, because of how significant those, because of the significance of the sin being atoned for in these offerings, those particular ones, it makes sense also to have the whole animal be burned and nobody able to eat it, because again, it's a more significant thing. There's more sin to atone for. But again, so the eating of it is kind of a new addition here in this chapter regarding these particular offerings. As well as the stuff about the pots. I guess in part this sets at least some kind of precedent for, current cleaning of dishes and whatnot that we do today. Although that could very well have been a thing for just common meals and whatnot, just cleaning plates and all that. But still, I think a big part of why they should have broken any clay pots used to cook those offerings, or scouring the pot and rinsing it with water if it was bronze, it was just because, you had to make sure all the blood or whatever from one offering didn't wind up getting onto the next offering. So, since you can't really clean a clay pot quite as well, I guess for that reason, it just had to be broken. Maybe there's a way to have clay pots be, cleanable now, especially nowadays, but I don't know if they had all that technology back then. I know ceramic is something that is at least sometimes used in cookware nowadays, but I don't know if it was really meant as reusable cookware back then. Again, we're not exactly privy to all the details of what the culture was like in those days. Maybe somebody has some more insight on that, but certainly not me. I'm not that well versed. Anyway, was there Was there a last footnote in here somewhere? Well, oh, no, there were footnotes in here, and I think I just missed that one. So for the word broken in there regarding the grain offerings, the exact meaning of the Hebrew word isn't known for sure, but since it's talking about it being in pieces, broken makes sense as just a further descriptive word in there. Okay, so that's going to do it for Leviticus 6. It's more stuff on offerings, but I think I figured out why it's going back to some types of offerings that it seemed like were already covered, and from my understanding, it seems like these extra instructions are specifically for the priests, like things that they're supposed to do with what's being offered and what gets saved for them and what doesn't, and other things like that. So I think the previous instructions, at least to some extent, were applicable to, everybody, but these are going more into the priests. And when I say everybody, I mean, of course, all the Israelites. But yeah, so before it was for all the Israelites, now the instructions are specifically for the priests. Anyway, okay. So that's it for now. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And of course, leave comments down below all that with any thoughts you have. So that's it. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next one. But until then, stay cool, people.